Hello! My name is Meerah, and I am a Lorekeeper in one of Yogg-Sothoth's libraries, and today I wanted to talk about the Shoggoths from the Lovecraft Mythos. They first appear in H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness in 1936, but would also appear later in The Shadow over Innsmouth, which was also published in 1936, and The Thing on the Doorstep, published a year later in 1937. Formless protoplasm, able to mock and reflect all forms and organs and processes. Viscous agglutinations of bubbling cells, rubbery 15-foot spheroids infinitely plastic and ductile. Slaves of suggestion, builders of cities, more and more sullen, more and more intelligent, more and more amphibious, more and more imitative. Great God, what madness made even those blasphemous old ones willing to use and carve such things. The Shoggoths were genetically engineered by the Elder Things as a race of servitors who used them as workers in their underwater construction projects. They are described as sentient blobs of self-shaping gelatinous flesh, similar to perhaps an amoeba. They're around 15 feet in diameter, should they choose to take the shape of a sphere, but they can vary wildly in size. They are capable of forming themselves into whatever shapes they find necessary in the moment, and can manifest whatever organs they deem necessary at the time as well. However, they tend to always sport eyes, mouths, and pseudopodia. They can move incredibly fast, being compared to a train. The Shoggoth can envelop prey and generate enough suction to decapitate their victim. This is specifically the style of combat they used against the Elder Things during their many uprisings against the slave masters. Originally, they were created to be mindless and with no real will of their own, but over the eons they slowly evolved to develop consciousness, and as a result would periodically rebel against the Elder Things. One of the more strange behaviors of the Shoggoths is their repetitive cry of "Tekeli-me, which was apparently a phrase they picked up from the Elder Things. Interestingly, Lovecraft's work would not be the first time this phrase would pop up, as Lovecraft was heavily inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, who uses the phrase in his 1838 novel The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, where a flock of birds in Antarctica cry the same phrase, which is thought to be an exclamation of suffering and woe. Eventually, after millions of years of servitude, the Shoggoths would finally claim victory in one of their uprisings against the Elder Things, around 150 million years ago in the Permian period, and they would go on to build their own cities. Their architecture would mimic the five-pointed symmetry found in the buildings of the Elder Things. Some Shoggoths have managed to survive into the modern age in the deepest parts of the oceans and in Antarctica. The Shoggoths in the oceans are often referred to as sea Shoggoths by the underwater amphibious race called the Deep Ones. The Deep Ones and sea Shoggoths are known to be allies, and the sea Shoggoths even helped to protect Erlier and the resting place of Cthulhu. The race known as the Migo tried to conduct their own experiments on the Shoggoths, performing mind grafts to try and make them more controllable and combining them with their own genetic material. These Shoggoths would come to be known as ghouls, but they proved to be just as rebellious as their ancestors, and the Migo would eventually be forced to confine them to secret caverns. In the distant past, Shoggoths were thought to have been used by certain cults, kept in underground pits and used for rituals and disposing of sacrifices or enemies. In more recent times, a new breed known as the Shoggoth Lords have come to prominence. They're smaller and more intelligent than their fellow Shoggoths, and are known for having enough control over their gelatinous forms to imitate humans, and it is said that some have already infiltrated various human cultures. Another Shoggoth variant, related to the Lords, is said to be able to perfectly replicate a specific human if the Shoggoth should receive a pint of blood from said human once a month for a year. And that's it! A very brief and short summary of the Shoggoth race from the Lovecraft Mythos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time here in the library.